My son forbade me from coming to his wedding, saying I wasn't welcome there. 2 days later, he sent me a bill for $5.5 million. I smirked and decided to turn their day into a nightmare. Friends, write where you're from and how old you are. I'm curious who's watching us. Enjoy listening. My son crossed me off the guest list for his wedding, but still had the audacity to send me a bill for $1.5 million, supposedly as a gift to his father. At the bottom, he'd scribbled by hand, "Be thankful I even let you take part at all." I wasn't angry. I simply smiled because, instead of rage, something entirely different awoke inside me. A cold, firm resolve. Their dream of a perfect wedding would become something they would remember forever, but not in the way they wanted. I was sitting alone in the kitchen of my house in Albany, at an old wooden table. October sunlight filtered through the faded curtains, falling onto the chipped tiles. The envelope had arrived in the morning, thick, cream-colored, with my son Kyle's neat handwriting on the front. For a second, I thought maybe they were finally inviting me after all those months of silence. A flicker of hope passed through me as I held the envelope up to the light, ran my finger along the sealed edge, and carefully tore it open. But inside wasn't an invitation. "No, Dad, you won't walk me down the aisle like we used to joke about when I was 10. Instead, it was a thick stack of papers, an itemized bill. Total, $1,500,000. I slowly scanned the lines. $850,000. Rental of a countryside estate near Albany, complete with a garden, lighting, and crystal chandeliers. For $100,000. Catering, gourmet cuisine, lobsters, imported wine. $250,000. Honeymoon in Miami at a luxury private resort with an ocean view and private beach access." At the very bottom was a sticky note in Kyle's messy handwriting. "Dad, after everything you did to this family, be glad I even gave you the chance to participate. This is your share. Transfer the money as soon as possible. Victoria and I are counting on you." I stared at the lines. The paper felt cold and smooth beneath my fingers. Problems in the family. That's what he means. Huh? Yes, our last conversation when he unloaded everything he'd bottled up. That I'd achieved nothing in my engineering career, hadn't provided enough for them, that after Sarah died we'd lived like poor people. He had thrown so much at me that day. I was still amazed I hadn't cursed at him in return. My hand trembled. I crumpled the paper, but then, after a moment, smoothed it back out and carefully placed it on the table. No, anger wouldn't help. That wouldn't solve anything. I pushed away from the table and stood up slowly, my knees cracking treacherously. The kitchen suddenly felt suffocating, the walls pressing down on my shoulders. I walked to the sink and splashed water on my face, but it didn't wash away the feeling that I'd been thrown out of my own life, and now they wanted me to pay to get back in. Kyle, my son, had decided to erase me like some unnecessary detail, but still expected to take my savings. The money I'd spent years putting aside by working overtime without vacations after Sarah died of cancer in 2015. He'd called only once after the funeral, and even then he'd said coldly, "You could have done more for us, Dad." I went back to the table. There lay my father's old pocket watch, softly ticking, as if whispering, "Hold on." That little boy in the photo, young Kyle, gap-toothed in a baseball cap, grinned as he squeezed my hand after another game. "Where is that boy? The one who used to hide under my jacket from the rain at the city park and say, 'You're the strongest, Dad.' Now he treated me like an ATM." I smirked, not with malice but with bitter irony. And in that moment, quietly but unmistakably, something inside me clicked, like a mechanism snapping into place. I carefully folded the bill, set it aside, and realized the game had begun. I wouldn't scream or tear my clothes. I would be cold, precise, and very calm. Let him think he'd won. But I knew one thing. This wedding would not be a fairy tale. It would be a lesson. I sat at the table, wiped the dust off my old laptop on the windowsill, and opened it. It booted slowly, But the screen lit up, the browser opened, and I began searching. Who they'd hired, where, how. Kyle had locked down his social media, but Victoria loved showing off. Scrolling through her posts, shiny captions, fancy photos, can't wait for our wedding at the Aurora Estate. Elite service, pure luxury, November 15th. Just 3 weeks left. Pictures of rehearsals, columns, tablecloths, chandeliers. Everything screamed golden wedding. Vendors listed, photographer, some event planner named Mark Barnes, catering with farm-to-table buzzwords, florists with arches and petals. The whole setup cost no less than $1.5 million. And I was the dad expected to bankroll all of it, without the right to even step inside. I poured myself a cheap glass of wine left over from yesterday and swallowed the bitter taste. Then I pulled out a notebook and started writing down places, dates, names, amounts. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. He'd erased me. Fine. But he wouldn't get my money, and I'd make sure he understood why. I kept scrolling through Victoria's feed, line by line, photo by photo, and each one fueled my anger. There she was at a boutique, twirling in her wedding dress, Kyle grinning stupidly at her side. The caption read, "Dad's paying for the big day." Almost right, except Dad wasn't even invited. I started gathering every piece of info. Vendors, dates, figures, flowers, luxury studio, limo rental with a live saxophonist inside. Everything was ridiculously extravagant. But the truth was clear. None of this could be paid for by Kyle's salary at his tech firm. Everything depended on one thing, me. I shut the laptop and took a deep breath. A direct talk with him would lead nowhere. He'd dodge, dismiss, say it wasn't the time, or that I was doing everything wrong. So I needed to act differently, quietly, coldly, methodically. And the first step was a call to Mark Barnes, the wedding planner. I found his website, sleek, pretentious slogan, "We don't just create weddings, we create legends." White arches, petals, smiling couples under canopies. His phone number was right there. I picked up the phone and dialed. 2 rings. "Good afternoon, Barnes and Partners Agency, Mark speaking. How can I make your day special?" I stood by the window, watching the wind toss leaves around the yard. I brought the phone closer and kept my voice steady. "Hello, this is Alexander Turner, Kyle Turner's father. As I understand it, I'm paying for his wedding." There was a short pause. Then his tone brightened. "Oh yes, Alexander. Kyle said you'd call. We're thrilled you're supporting them. Victoria is so excited about the plans. Everything is going perfectly. The estate, the decor, the photographer, the tents, the saxophonist." I let him finish. Then, in the same calm tone, I cut in, "Mark, I'd like to discuss a few things in person. Can we meet tomorrow? I have a few important clarifications." He agreed quickly and set a meeting for 10 a.m. at his downtown Albany office. I hung up, poured myself another half glass of wine, and stared through the hazy window, already picturing his face when he heard the truth. The morning was gray, with a light drizzle. I left early, a thermos of strong coffee in my bag, notebook with the bill breakdown inside. I wore a clean dark gray sweater and classic slacks. Nothing fancy, but neat. I needed to look like someone who couldn't just be dismissed. On the drive over, I kept repeating one thought. You're not begging. You're not asking. You're paying. So you decide. Barnes's office was in a new building, glass, steel, the smell of expensive coffee in the lobby. He greeted me in a checkered blazer, groomed with a practiced smile. "Alexander, welcome. Tea? Coffee? Please, this way." We went into his office, fabric samples, binders, tablets, framed wedding photos. He laid out a folder in front of me, every figure, every date, every contract. Total $1,500,000, just like in the bill. "Everything's ready," he said. "Kyle confirmed everything. We just need the final payment. Without it, we can't move forward." The estate is only reserved until Friday. After that, we might lose it. I leaned forward and calmly asked, "Tell me, Mark, did Kyle mention that I'm not invited to the wedding?" Silence. His eyebrows shot up. The folder snapped shut. "Excuse me?" That he sent me the bill without an invitation, and a note saying, "Be glad I even let you take part." Take part in what, Mark? Paying? He hesitated, took off his glasses, wiped them. "Well, that's, awkward." Kyle didn't say anything like that. He just said the family was contributing to the budget. "I'm not contributing, Mark. I'm paying." But without the right to attend. No seat at the table. No toast. He nodded slowly, leaned back, and finally said, "Well, that changes everything. Without payment, unfortunately, we can't proceed." "Then tell Kyle," I replied calmly, "that the wedding is on hold. No money without a conversation with me. And if he tries to pressure you, remind him how easily celebrations fall apart when they depend on one payer." Mark nodded, his eyes no longer so confident. "Understood. I'll call him today. This changes everything." When I stepped outside, the air felt fresh. The autumn wind brushed against my face, and for the first time in a long while, my chest felt steady, calm. The first move had been made, but I knew Kyle wouldn't give up so easily. I needed allies, someone who knew him well. Standing by my car, as leaves stuck to the hood like confetti at a failed party, I knew who to call. A name, Alex Mason. Kyle and Alex had been inseparable since childhood. Alex used to sleep over at our house when his parents were divorcing. Sarah would make him cocoa, and we'd all sit around playing cards. Kyle had been kinder back then. He'd been my son. I hit call before I could change my mind. 2 rings. Then a voice. "Hello. Alex. It's Alexander Turner. Been a long time, huh?" "Whoa. Mr. Turner? No way. Yeah, it's been forever. How are you? Did something happen?" I sighed. "Kyle's getting married. But it's complicated. I need your help. Heard you're a private investigator now? And a photographer too." He chuckled. "That's right. Life's taken some turns. Where should we meet? How about the Broadway Cafe? In an hour. Remember that place? Of course. Best poppy seed pastries in town. I'll be there." An hour later, I was sitting by the window. The cafe smelled of fresh pastries. Outside, leaves were falling from the trees onto the pavement. Alex appeared at the door. Fit, a camera slung over his shoulder, gaze sharp and focused. We greeted each other with a firm handshake. "You haven't changed, Andrew. But Chris, his eyes are different now. He looks through people." "I noticed." He nodded. "Here's your coffee. Thanks for coming." I laid a sheet of paper in front of him, amounts, dates, organizers. He read it, then looked up. "He really sent you an invoice for $1.5 million and didn't invite you to the wedding?" Just scribbled, "Be grateful I let you participate. No toast, no invite. Just pay and stay silent." Alex clenched his fist, then released it. His face went cold. I was expecting something like this. We drifted apart years ago, 7, maybe. That was when he asked me to lie on his resume. Said I should vouch for fake experience. I refused. He told me, "You're dead weight. You've always held me back." I stayed quiet, then asked, "Do you know anything about Victoria? His past?" "Plenty. In college, he turned in my project as his own and vanished. She's the same. Everything's for show, all about the stories. They want to be a successful couple, not a family." We sipped our coffee in silence. Then I said, "I want you to help me. Film the wedding from outside. Get shots of the guests. If they start whispering once everything goes downhill, I need footage. Proof. Just in case it goes public." He nodded. His eyes lit up. "I'm with you, Andrew. And not for the money, but because I owe you. For those days you pulled me out, for when Elaine saved me, For when I was 12, sleeping on your couch and you taught me fractions on that old calculator. We clinked mugs, no fuss, just for justice. Before he left, he asked, "What if we need recordings, intercepts, logs, cameras?" I nodded. "Come by tonight. Show me what we need. We'll set it up. I need to be prepared for anything." "I'll be there at 8, he said, "with the gear and the plan." That evening, the rain started, fine and sharp. Alex arrived on time. His bag was heavy with equipment. I met him at the door. The porch light flickered dimly in the rain, like a lamp in the fog. "Ready for an upgrade?" he said, brushing water off his jacket. "Always," I said, closing the door behind him. We walked to the living room. I cleared the table of newspapers and mugs, started the kettle, handed him a cup. Then I let him talk. He spoke clearly. "Look, this is a hidden voice recorder. Catches everything. One button to turn it on. It's legal in your state as long as you know it's recording. This here's a mini cam. Tuck it in the corner near the door. It'll catch everyone who walks in. Good enough quality. Works over Wi-Fi. Sends to your phone." I learned fast. I checked it, tested it. On my phone screen, my face stared back in real time. The camera caught the entrance. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel weak. I felt strong. Then Alex spoke softer. "Remember when Chris told you that you didn't fight hard enough for Elaine? That if you made more money, she would have survived?" I nodded. "Too well." He said that in 2016. I had just sold the car to cover her chemo. He called me cold voice, no thanks. "I remember that," Alex said. "And I remember how you ran to court for me when I messed up as a kid. You did everything without drama, just because you cared. And now he cuts you out, then calls you a sponsor? I'm with you to the end." We clinked mugs again, this time for dignity. I installed the camera, tested the feed. Everything worked. Later, I sat by the window. Rain trailed down the glass like strings. The old fridge hummed. Droplets tapped the window, and inside, quiet. Not empty quiet, focused. Next morning, I woke up early. Coffee in the thermos, my usual steps around the house. Glance out the window, routine. But the day inside felt unusual. A strange kind of waiting for a call. The phone was silent all day. I walked the neighborhood, checked cameras, adjusted the sound. Every noise outside made me jump. Then finally, that evening, he called. The screen lit up. "Chris." I didn't answer right away. Waited for the fourth ring. Then, "Hello," I said calmly. "Dad, what's going on?" He said, "Mark says you refused to pay. Are you sabotaging our wedding?" I stood barefoot on the carpet, recorder in hand, already running. "Yes," I said evenly. "Sabotaging. You crossed me out and now you want me to pay? I remember your note. Be grateful I let you participate." Silence. Then his voice, irritated, cracking. "It's not that simple. Dad, Victoria and her friends thought it'd be weird. You're retired, it would have looked out of place. But my money isn't out of place, right? Dad, no drama. Okay? After Mom, you've been, well, not yourself. Everything was falling apart. This is your chance to help us. After Mom." That hit like a hammer. He used Elaine again, as if I was to blame for her death. I clenched my jaw. My voice stayed level. "I raised you alone, sold my car, took a second mortgage, and now you don't even want me near you, but you want my money. Aren't you ashamed?" He snapped. "You're ruining everything." Victoria's furious. The caterer wants a deposit. The venue's threatening penalties. "Don't destroy this." I looked at the old pocket watch on my nightstand. Its ticking filled the silence. Every second a nail in the coffin of his argument. "Fix what you broke," I said. "Talk to me like a son, not like an accountant." Then another voice came through, Victoria's. Cold, annoyed. "Andrew, this is too much. You're ruining an important day. We're building a future. You're an adult. Why seek revenge? Revenge. I chuckled. It's called boundaries and fairness. I'm not an ATM. You wanted standards? Now deal with the consequences. Chris jumped in. It's your duty. You owe us. You're jealous of my success. Something froze inside me. He said it out loud. Jealous of his success. That was it. Not love. Not hurt. Just ego. Raw and unfiltered. Success built on other people's bones isn't success. You just learn to use people. But not anymore, I said firmly. Silence. Just breathing on the other end. Then click. He hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, listening to the hum of the fridge, and felt one thing. Resolve. An hour later, a message from Alex. Rumors are spreading. Vendors are nervous. Some are pulling out. Photos attached. I opened the image. A flower delivery truck. Closed up. Boxes being loaded back in. Caption. Didn't get the rest. We're leaving. Another image. Chris, standing at the gate in the rain, yelling at a delivery guy. A voice message followed. Hey, Andy. Saw your kid today. Screaming at a driver. Do you even know who I am? Victoria's next to him, dressed like she walked out of a fashion ad. People are staring. I nodded to myself. The system cracked. Not broken yet, but it started. Next day, I went to the market. Bought fresh groceries. Brought them home. Just potatoes, onions, canned beef, sour cream. But I cooked with a quiet inside me, as if the house was finally free of debts. Turned on the radio, poured some tea, and then Tanya called. Local notary. Old classmate. Calm, businesslike voice. Hey, Andy. Got news. Chris and Victoria came by today. I put down my mug. What did they want? Tried to see if I could revise the paperwork for the wedding donation. Wanted to prove you intended to fund everything and backed out. I stayed quiet. I told them everything was verbal.
No hable gaschens.
No documents. But they pushed. Victoria acts like you owe her something by default. I sighed. Thanks, Tanya, for not falling for it. You kidding? I saw you at the hospital with Elaine. Every day. You deserve peace. Not this circus. I hung up and went to the attic. In a box were Elaine's old letters. Her handwriting. Her warmth. Each line reminded me. She would have understood everything. That evening, another message from Alex. At the wedding, they're saying you lost your mind. Midlife crisis. Jealous of Chris's new family. I just shrugged. Their last card. The bitter, lonely man routine. Classic. Phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello, Andrew. This is Gregory Miller, manager of Rosewood Estate. Just confirming. The banquet and venue payment really canceled. Yes, everything's canceled. I'm not the sponsor. Not invited. Not involved. Silence. Then cautiously. Well, we received a partial deposit. But without guarantees we can't proceed. Not my problem, I said calmly. I understand. But the couple insists it's a misunderstanding, and you'll cover everything last minute. Then let them show a receipt. Contract. You got anything? No, of course not. Then I suggest you be careful. If you keep working off promises, you may end up taking a loss. I won't vouch for Chris. He thanked me and hung up. 2 days passed. Bad weather. Wind and rain. I sat by the window, sipping tea with honey, watching leaves swirl in the yard, like time itself erasing the marks of foolishness. And then boom, a message from Elaine's sister. Did you hear? Victoria called off the engagement. Big scandal. Group chats blowing up. He hit one of the vendors. There's video. I checked social media. Sure enough, a short clip. Chris losing it on a man in a black jacket, shouting, waving his arms. Then a sharp movement. Someone yells, "What the hell, man?" Comments savage as usual. Oh look, the local rich kid blew it. Daddy stopped paying. Awkward. That same evening, I sat down in the kitchen. The light was warm and soft. The clock ticked quietly. I felt calm. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't anxious, wasn't thinking about what I needed to fix, do, or say. I was just there, breathing, living, listening to the kettle begin to hiss. The next day, Lena, Ellen's sister, showed up. Unannounced, like always. She dropped a bag of pies on the table and said, "Have you seen this?" She tossed me a printout. It was a screenshot of Victoria's messages with some girlfriend. The tone was bitter. That old man's totally lost it. We invested so much in him and now he bailed. He thought we'd respect him just 'cause he's a widower? Let him sit there and cry. I set the paper down. The style was painfully familiar. Where was this from? Oh, I knew someone who worked at an event agency. Said there'd been a massive scandal. Victoria had screamed that everything was ruined, blamed Kirill, and then, it turned out, she hadn't exactly been faithful to him. I quietly put the kettle back on. The house smelled like mint and cinnamon. "They planned it from the beginning, Alex," Lena said calmly. "They just wanted your money. That's all they ever needed." I nodded. Too late, but I finally saw it. "Kirill wasn't always like this," she added. "Remember how he used to run to you for advice as a kid? You were his whole world. Now you're just a convenient wallet." I nodded and said, "He's no longer part of my life. I've let him go, and let myself go too." We had tea. Lena hugged me like family. "You did the right thing," she said. "You're alive, you're strong. You're not just some ATM." A week passed. The rumors died down. The wedding was officially canceled. Kirill vanished. But I knew he'd return. Not for an apology, but for an opportunity. I was right. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. A printed notice from a notary. Kirill was suing me for emotional damages. Yes, that's what it said. Emotional damages. Justifications. Ruined expectations, public shame, parental betrayal, and other nonsense. Claim amount, $920,000. I sighed, sat down, and started writing a response. Gathered every receipt, check, proof. Everything that showed I never officially promised anything. It was all voluntary support. I called Tanya, my notary. "I'll help," she said. "This is nonsense, but technically, he can sue you for $1 billion if he wants. The real question is, what will the court say?" While the process dragged on, I kept living. Went grocery shopping, cooked chili, cleaned out the old garage, slowly returned to myself, the me no one had ever given away in pieces. One evening, the phone rang. The caller ID had a DC area code. I answered and felt the chill in my spine. "Dad, it's me." Silence. Then a heavy sigh. "Can I come over?" I paused. "Why?" "Just want to talk. No drama." I hesitated a few seconds. "Okay, but not for long." 2 hours later, he was at the door. Older. Gaunt. Tired eyes. I opened the door but didn't ask him to take off his jacket. He understood. "Thanks for letting me in." I didn't. I just opened the door. "Speak." He sat down, head lowered. Everything fell apart. Victoria left. Said I was a failure. That I ruined everything. She moved back in with her mom. Said she didn't need me anymore. "And you?" I asked. "What do you want?" He looked up. "To fix everything. Go back." I smiled. "Back to when you used me and I pretended not to notice?" Silence. Then a whisper. "I'm sorry." I looked at him calmly. "Too late. I don't hate you. I don't love you. You're just my former son now." He broke. Got up. Cried. Walked to the door. At the threshold, he turned around. "I was foolish. Someday, I'll make it right. You do what you want. But you're not welcome here anymore." He left. And I was alone again. But you know what I felt? Not pain, relief. 2 months passed. The court denied Kirill's lawsuit. Deemed it groundless. He paid his own legal fees. I didn't celebrate. I just noted to myself, justice still exists. The house was quiet now. I'd get up in the mornings, drink black tea with honey, step outside and listen to the wind. No one yelling, no one demanding, no chaos. Then, in mid-May, someone knocked on the gate. Softly, hesitant. I opened it. A little girl, maybe 6, blonde hair, wide eyes. Next to her, a woman in her 30s. "Hi, are you Alex?" "Yes, I'm Anna. This is Vera, my daughter. You don't know us, but you might have known my father, Paul Lucas. You worked with him about 20 years ago. He died in an accident 2 years ago." I froze. Paul. Redhead. Always cheerful. Always with a guitar. We'd melt condensed milk on the break room stove. Lost touch after the factory shut down. I remember him, of course. What happened? Anna looked away. Before he died, he left a letter. It had your name. He said if life ever got really hard, we should find you. Not for money, for words. He said you were the kind of man who knew how to be real. I invited them in. Put on the kettle. The girl stared at old photos on the shelf. Anna told me how they lived in a rented apartment, barely making ends meet. Her husband, not Vera's father, had left for another woman. But she didn't ask for anything. I listened, and for the first time in years I felt something warm. Not pity, but meaning. We started seeing each other more. Vera came over to draw. I gave her my old sketchbook from when I was designing the house. Anna brought pies, not as thanks, just because. We'd sit on the porch and talk about life. It wasn't love. It was something deeper, trust that asked for nothing. One night, after Vera was asleep, Anna said quietly, "I wasn't looking for a savior, just someone who could be there without judgment, without wanting anything back. And you were that." I looked at her. I wasn't looking either. Just wanted someone breathing in the house again. She took my hand in silence. And in that silence was more than 1,000 words. The next morning I woke up early, went to the market, bought strawberries, cottage cheese, mint. The kitchen smelled like childhood. And I realized something. I didn't need a new family. I didn't need to start over. I just needed meaning. And sometimes meaning isn't in grand gestures. Sometimes it's just making tea for someone else. 6 months passed. At first, they just visited. Then they stayed a bit longer. And eventually, they stayed for good. Not as a family. Just people under one roof, happy to be near each other. I never asked if they planned to live here forever. I didn't need to. There was warmth in the house again. Laughter. Someone slamming the door not out of anger, but because they were rushing to the kitchen. One Sunday, we were sitting in the backyard, frying bread on a skillet, pouring tea. And suddenly Vera asked, "Are you my grandpa?" Anna froze, ready to intervene. But I just smiled. "Do you want me to be?" She nodded, serious. "Then I am. Deal?" She held out her hand. We shook on it. That evening I sat by the window. Vera's sketchbook lay on the windowsill. She'd drawn our yard, the garden, the cat, herself, and me. Under the picture she'd written, "My grandpa. He saved us from being alone." I set the book aside, went to the basement. In an old box were documents, will, bank records. I rewrote everything. The house would go to Anna, a trust fund for Vera, available when she turned 18 so she could choose her path. Not because they asked, because I decided so. The next day, I drove out to the countryside to visit Paul's grave. Simple stone, a few worn photos. I sat next to it. "Paul, you were right to trust me. You had a good daughter, and a wonderful granddaughter. I'll watch over them." Someone coughed to my left. I turned. A man in his 50s. Work jacket. "Sorry. Did you know Lucas?" "Yes. We worked together. He was like a brother to me. He died picking up his daughter from school." A drunk city official in an SUV plowed into the crowd. The others lived. Paul didn't. I clenched my fists, said nothing. They tried to cover it up. His wife fought hard. Got justice. The guy's still in prison. I nodded. That's where her strength came from. We talked for a bit, then parted ways. On the drive home, one thought kept circling. Sometimes, to save something, you don't need to fix it. You just need to stay. Quietly. Truly. Till the end. I came home by evening. On the table, a note. Bought dumplings. Went to the store. Be right back. Anna. The kitchen still smelled like mint. Water in the kettle was still warm. I poured a cup. Sat down. It was getting dark outside. And you know what? I didn't regret a thing. Not the losses. Not the lawsuit. Not the scandal. Not even the time alone, however brief. Because all of it was life. And life isn't about being right. It's about not betraying yourself. And if, in the end, you remained yourself, then none of it was in vain.